Hey guys, Logan and Goose here from Popular Woodworking Magazine. So about a year ago, we did a video with McFeely's on why a square drive screw is really the only screw that you need for your shop. We had a lot of views on that video. We also had a lot of questions. So I figured we would do a follow-up video with McFeely's and go ahead and talk about the 3 rules of thumb when you are choosing and using screws in your shop. So let's talk about them. So the first rule of thumb with screws is to choose a screw that is the right type of screw for your project. And what I mean by that is choosing a screw that's the right length, the right diameter, and that is the proper thread shape. And I'll talk about that in a second. So the first is the length. Now, obviously we don't want to choose a screw that is too long that's going to poke through the backside of our project. So we're looking for a screw that is generally about 1/8 of an inch shorter than our 2 pieces together. That is assuming that you are screwing together something like 2 3/4 inch pieces of material. Or if you are screwing into a thicker piece, so you're attaching a 3/4 inch piece of plywood to, let's say, a 2x2 framework, you want at least 2/3 of that screw into the attaching material. Then we have to look at the size. Now, screws come in different number sizes, from number 4s clear up to 14s. The smaller the number, the smaller the screw. The 3 most popular types that we will use in the shop are going to be these guys here. We have a number 6, we have a number 8, and we have a number 10. So 6 is a little bit smaller than the 8. The 8 is kind of my general purpose size. It is a good, kind of all around size for general furniture use and shop use. And then when we get to something a little bit bigger like this number 10, that's for when I'm using maybe a little bit heavier stock, or I'm working on outdoor material. I go to a stainless steel screw, and that is something to keep in mind, is that you want to make sure if you are choosing screws for an outdoor project, you want something that's going to be weather resistant. So something like this stainless steel screw would be the proper choice there. But being stainless steel, even though we have a square drive head on this guy, it does have the potential to cam out a little bit faster because that stainless steel is a little bit softer. So there's all these things you have to keep in mind. And then we have to look at the thread shape. Now, what we don't want, and what you find a lot in, like, let's say big box store screws, are screws that are threaded all the way up to the bottom of the head. And the problem with that is that if the 2 pieces of material that you are screwing together are not clamped tightly, you can actually capture one of these threads between the boards. And then no matter how much you drive that screw in, it's never going to suck those 2 pieces of material together. It's called board jacking, where you have that captured thread inside of the 2 pieces of material. So what we want is a screw that is not threaded all the way. So this screw here in the center and this stainless steel screw are a screw from McFeely's. It's called the Pro Max. And the Pro Max is only threaded about 40% of the length of the screw. And what this allows you to do is to drive this screw in, and those threads are only going to grab into the material that you are attaching to, not the material that you are attaching. So this area of the screw is going to not have any threads on it and suck that board down to whatever you're attaching it to. So a lot of times you'll be in a big box store and you'll see something like a drywall screw or something generically called wood screws, and they're threaded all the way. And it's just not, it isn't a good option for use in the shop. So choosing the right screw is the first step in getting a good attachment in your project. So let's talk about the second rule of thumb. So the second rule of thumb is to pre-drill our material. Now, there's 2 types of pre-drills, and we'll talk about those in a second. But the real reason that we want to pre-drill is to mainly because a lot of times we are using either hardwood or plywood. We want to keep it from cracking or chipping out. And even driving a screw without pre-drilling, you can lift a lot of fibers, and that in itself can separate the material, and you kind of get that captured thread type thing that we talked about a little bit before. So for pre-drills, we really have 2 different types, and these are the 2 types that I like to use, and they're slightly different, and I think you can probably see that. So this one on my left, your right, is a straight pre-drill. So the pre-drill pilot bit there is not tapered, it is straight, and that kind of corresponds to that stem of that screw. That's not the right size for that one. This would be for a number 8 there. And this also has a countersink head on it, which is going to really cup and hold that bugle head shape on the bottom of the screw. Now, in contrast, the other type of pre-drill is going to be this tapered pre-drill bit. And this one's slightly different. And this one it's a little bit harder to use. I actually like this one a little bit better, but it is a little bit harder to use because you have to be really, really precise with the depth that you're drilling. Because this is drilling a tapered hole, what it's doing is it is, in essence, allowing room for that top half of the screw, which, as I said, these Pro Max from McFeely's aren't threaded up there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But if these were threaded further up, it allows room for those threads not to grab and only grab down at the tip. But that also means that you have to be very, very precise when you're setting up this countersink location on here, which you adjust with the little Allen screw and you can pull this back. But I do like it, not as much as using something like the Pro Max with that straight bit, however. So the final rule of thumb that I like to use it leads into something I said earlier, but that is to wax the threads on my screw before I drive them. Now, what I said earlier is you want to make sure you choose the proper screw material, and that's absolutely the case. Something like this stainless steel screw is perfect for outdoor furniture. It's corrosion resistant, but it is soft and it can come out. So by putting a little bit of beeswax on those threads before you drive it, it will help avoid some of that cam out, and it's going to drive in a lot easier. Now, of course, there are other options for outdoor screws. Something like this dry lube screw has a little bit of corrosion resistance, but I still like to go ahead and lubricate those threads before I drive those screws. Now, I've thrown a lot of information at you about choosing screws, choosing the right length, the thread style, and stuff like that. Don't worry, you don't have to remember it. McFeely's has this all on a webpage, and I'll include a link for that down below in the description of this video that you can reference. So the next time that you need to pick out screws for your project, go ahead and keep these things in mind, and that'll help you lead to better projects in your shop and more enjoyment. We'll see you next time.